Hello everyone, welcome back to D20 Sundays. This is one of my attempts at making my own leather-bound spellbook, and I think I kind of got it pretty well as far as a prop goes. Definitely going to try again in the future. As you know, kind of looks decent-ish. It's crap. It's crap. I'm going to try again. That's not what today's episode is about. I'm not that good at prop making, so I want to say, if you want a video on prop making, I'll be happy to do one, but this is, right here, the most interesting one I've made so far, which is this staff. Hope you can see it well enough. Yeah, I used some bits of ripped up fabric for like here, a chain for all around. Got a nice D20 right here in the center. I wanted to put a light in that made it light up, but I decided against that for now. Maybe I'll eventually go back and change that, but for now, I'm just going to set that right there. But yeah. So welcome to D20 Sundays. Today's on easing in new players, or more of getting started with a campaign that you have new people in. People that you haven't played with before, or people who haven't played with each other before. This can be a very interesting situation for a lot of dungeon masters and players, as this is like, oh hey, I can't fully be me just yet, because these guys don't know me that well. Or maybe like, the DM knows me, but these guys don't. Or these guys do, but the DM doesn't. Or, whatever the situation is. When you, as the party, be you the Dungeon Master or the players, have a new player, it takes some adjustment time to get used to them, and for them to get used to you. So, the whole dynamic changes for a small amount of time. Just so you know, this is a two-piece video. The first one is on new players. The second one is going to be on what I call the committee. But we'll get to that in a moment, because they tend to go hand in hand. You see, what happens is that, say you have a group of just brand new players, and maybe one experienced player. So, what do? Well, I like to do is run a module. Take a pre-made module and run from that. Use it as the basis, and possibly just, completely run it, or tweak it a bit to run it as you want. But for the most part, run the module, and use it as a means of getting the party and the players, not only the characters, but them themselves, used to each other and interacting with each other enough to where they can kind of get a feel of how everyone does things. This is especially good for players who are new to the game completely, as it now lets them learn at a much easier pace than, say, a homebrew game, of how to essentially play the game and play their role in the game. Because every class has their role, and you have to know your role before you can play. Well, not before you play, but you should know your role as you play, so that way you know what part of the party you are supporting and what you give to the party in order to make it succeed, versus just, we're just going to run at it. Hit it till it drops. That tends to be the most basic, bare-bone, strategy for a lot of people. Hit it till it drops. Which, to be fair, I use that a lot in my campaigns, because when I do introduce mechanics, it definitely makes things challenging, and I don't want to make every fight, ooh, it's a new mechanic, ooh, it's a new mechanic, and, it's different. I'll reuse one or two mechanics throughout a campaign, or it's part of the gimmick of the big bad evil guy. And, that's just kind of how things work. So, the first thing with easing in new players, like I said, module. Second one is essentially, having them introduce themselves, and everyone at the table introduce themselves, and maybe talk a little bit about what would be, something that that character would be willing to share with another person. Is that character going to talk about, every life, or every love that he's had throughout his life? No, maybe just something small that he would talk about freely about, things that he enjoys. Like, he enjoys a hot cup of tea in the afternoon, preferably on a grassy knoll. Or perhaps he's more of a laid-back fisherman kind of guy, and that's how he passes the time. Things like that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the committee, which stems from when you have inexperienced or players who essentially get a little too comfortable. So the committee can come from a number of things. New players most of the time are guilty of making a committee where they stop all combat, they stop all puzzles, they stop the progress completely to figure out what their next step should be. And to an extent, that's kind of fine. You know, it's fine to an extent. Other times, it's like, oh my god, just go. So the committee is essentially that. When the party and the plot and everything comes to a grinding halt, so that way the party can discuss as to what they believe they should be doing next. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really needed, and there are situations and campaigns where I've seen that a committee is definitely needed because the party's going like this, and while I've put out a basic plot line for them, they're so divided on essentially what they wanted to do, and they're not communicating with each other enough clearly as to what they want to do, that everyone's uncertain as to who's doing what. This could be a serious problem, as it's going to end up having players step on each other's toes because their plans don't go hand in hand, or they misinterpreted what the other one wanted. Because once again, communication is a very clear thing, as well as sometimes the committee's needed, but most of the time, keep it under 2 minutes, okay? At least under 5. Because, hear me out, the committee is useful at times, but if you're constantly stopping to do a committee every time you enter in a room, or talk to an NPC, or do something, well, then you're talking and planning more than you're playing the game. Sometimes you're just flat out overthinking everything, and the DM put a simple thing there, and you're driving the DM crazy because you're overthinking it. So how do you fix the committee? Well, you talk with your players. You have your players talk, and you essentially have them figure out, like, bullet points to a plan before they get to the session. It's like, okay, what are you guys planning on doing for this session? What do you need done? What do you want done? And we'll see what we can do. That works great in some campaigns if you're like Sandboxy, where it's much more player-driven than plot-driven, to where the players and their interactions are the story, versus I have an overall arcing plot that I want the players to follow. Yeah. Another way that I've cured the committee problem. If you ever watched the movie Blazing Saddles, which, hilarious movie by Mel Brooks, way many two uses of the N-word, but it's all a social commentary, and it's a hilarious movie. I have not found a person yet who does not like the movie Blazing Saddles. But, with that being said, there's a very particular scene in that movie that I have used as a way of curing the committee. And that's when two men are talking at a bar table, and one of them just suddenly stops the other from talking, because he didn't want to listen to him anyways. And he just stops him from talking. He says, "Forget that shit, here comes Mungo!" And here comes Mungo, who is this giant of a man, who just essentially strong arms and bullies and pushes everyone around. So, for my campaigns and my games, there's a chance of meeting Mungo. If I feel like the committee is taking too long, I will roll a dice. Normally a d6. And whatever number it falls on, that's how many minutes they got to fix this problem. Or end the committee and move on. Else, here comes Mungo. And I'll normally have an NPC say it. And, you know, like, or they just hear it out of nowhere. Like, you know, we're in a tunnel out of nowhere, you know. Where is Mungo going to come from? Well, through the wall. Mungo himself is normally a hill giant. And that's what makes him fun. Every time, you know, the players are like, okay, you guys are doing the committee thing way too much, way too often. Here we go. And NPC is going to say, oh shit, here comes Mungo! And then hill giant. I haven't had a committee problem after implementing this. Like, as soon as they hear the dice roll, and they're like, oh, Ian's rolling, that means Mungo might be showing up. We need to fix this conversation quickly. Other times, I haven't had a problem with the committee in the Surskin campaign, actually, now that I think about it, and I haven't had to use Mungo there. But the players have been working together so well, and they've been able to communicate and just move through that, yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a problem. So, interesting. I guess it depends on the party composition and how everyone plays as to whether a committee is needed or is ever used. But, like I said, the committee has its uses, and sometimes I definitely, suggest that a party, creates this committee where they talk out of game. And they, essentially talk out of game for a moment as to how they believe they should proceed forward, and then proceed forward. But I normally suggest keep it under 5 minutes. As well as there are times where the committee becomes too much of a problem in the sense that it's, the game's stopping too much. You're being a committee about everything. Not everything is a major, encounter. Sometimes it's a minor encounter in which you just have to think through, and you're now overthinking it. Stop overthinking. You're being stupid. But yeah. That's kind of what I want to talk about today, the D20 Sundays, is how to essentially ease in new players with the use of a pre-made module that's a very easy one, and get them used to each other and as all that fun jazz. Now, if they're coming in the middle of a campaign, well, they're going to have to learn sink or swim style. They should have been there for the beginning. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, as well as on the committee on that stuff. I'll catch you guys next time on the next D20 Sundays. Laters.